This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
There are two primary ways students can gather data on student mastery: through questioning and through observation. You teach something, and then you ask students questions, listening for the stream of data within their answers, often engineering your questions so the data stream is a little richer. Alternately, you assign students a task to complete on their own, and watch intentionally as they work, attending to what you observe and how to ensure that information about mastery is reliably visible. In either case, a few straightforward techniques can help you find and use data that come from your interactions with students. The first step in increasing the data your questioning reveals is to avoid a common pitfall: using a yes or no question to ask students whether or not they understand. I don't know many teachers, myself included, who haven't said something like the following. Teacher: Okay, those are the basics of cellular structure. Everyone clear on the differences between plant and animal cells? Or, Teacher: So that's cellular structure and the differences between plant and animal cells. Got it, guys? Technique 1. Reject self-report. Replace functionally rhetorical questions with more objective forms of impromptu assessment. Such questions are usually greeted with silent assent or perhaps a muttered, yeah. Next, the teacher usually says something like this. Teacher: Good. Let's push on to the role of chloroplasts. Whether they're addressed to adults or kids, in a school, work, or athletic setting, questions like, is everyone clear on, or everybody got it, are functionally rhetorical. They're asked over and over, the question is almost always a passive yes, and it is almost never accurate. Volumes of social science literature have established that self-report is highly unreliable. Questions that ask for binary, that is, yes-no, answers are particularly suspect. Throw in group dynamics in the classroom, and for the great majority of self-report questions, what we get back isn't really even an answer so much as a formality. Whether people understand or not, they almost always say they do, particularly in groups. The result is we get little, if any, data at a moment when our instincts are telling us we should be assessing. Let's go back to the earlier question. So that's cellular structure and the differences between plant and animal cells. Got it, guys? Even if people thought the question was in earnest, most would be reticent to stop a group of 25 people and say, no, actually I don't really understand what you mean by the rigid structure of plant cells. Even if they could, in that moment, 1, identify that there was something they didn't know, and 2, describe it quickly so that you can understand it, most people would be unlikely to do so in front of a group that size, out of embarrassment or fear that they would co-opt the better interests of the group. They'd assume they were the only one who didn't get it, and that it wasn't fair to speak up. Even more compelling than implicit social pressure is a deeper problem. Often students don't know that they missed something because, well, they missed it. If they missed your description of the rigid structure of plant cells, they may not know they missed it. Similarly, students often think they understand when they don't, or they don't know how to reflect much on the question of whether they really understand something. When you ask, do you understand the differences between the structures of plant and animal cells, what your students may be assenting to is, for all practical purposes, can you think of something you know about the difference between plant and animal cells? The vague nature of most self-report questions exacerbates this. If our questions aren't directive, they have no reason to draw students' attention to the many things they should know. This encourages them not only to give us false positives, but, possibly, to believe them themselves.